Ladies and gentlemen, right now on the Dealer Evolution stage, give it up for the CEO of Garage Composites, Tony Gonzalez.
What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing out there? That's a horrible picture. Nobody told me I'm this ugly. And nice haircut. Thank you, Vartanian. You can leave right now. A couple of things. My name is Tony Gonzalez. I'm one of 5 owners now of Garage Composites, and my original business partner, Sam Dantzler, and I are doing the podcast up front. Stop by and say hi. And we have 2 of our other owners running our booth. So we've been in business about 11 years now, running 20 clubs and so on and so forth, doing training like this. So thank you all for coming. The second thing you might ask yourself is, what happened? I've gotten that question at least 1 million times. I'm old. I had to have my big toe fused. Please don't ask me again what happened. And this is going to be a little odd because typically I like to give my speeches down there, walking all over the place, talking to people direct. I'm a little bit hampered by that. So, so what are you in for in the next 45 minutes? Some of it is pure fact and some of it is speculative. What I really want you to leave here with is I really want you to understand that there is going to be a tidal wave coming our way in the near future. And I'll kind of show you in some of my first graphics that I put up. But Sam gave a speech yesterday, and he proved a very valid point, and it's something that we believe deeply in Garage Composites. And I don't know, between us, 24, 25 years, you've been in the industry, 22, 23, 20, whatever, a lot of years that we've been doing this. And it started out kind of with unique problems that we have yet to solve. Things like traffic logs, things like having people come into any one of your departments and being treated like you have white gloves on your hand and treating people like you're thankful that they've walked in the door into your business. Those things still exist on a daily basis. And we would frankly be out of business if we had solved those problems, but we continue to discuss those, yes? So this presentation today is not in lieu of taking care of people that have walked through your door, giving good experience in all of your department, taking care of your team, having a process, using all the tools available to you. It's not that. We still firmly believe in that. What this presentation is that, like I said, there is a tidal wave that has started, and if you think back to what happened in Thailand with that tsunami, and they wish there would have been warning signs, I hope you all know there are 1 million warning signs of the way that things are going to be changing exponentially in the next few years. And if you don't think that that is going to happen, you may get passed by, okay? So one of the first things I want to talk about is my first 2 slides. I had a help with those 2 slides from a friend of mine named Jeff Bohannon from Protomet. He gave a speech about 5 years ago on kind of evolution. His speech went in a totally different manner than mine, but the 2 opening slides that he gave I was thinking, man, those are awesome to look at evolution and how things have changed. And so with his help, I've kind of ginned those up a little bit, but they're not my original slides, they are his. So the first thing I want you to think about is 200 years we have been in the form of transportation, okay? We went from a horse, okay, which is somewhere in the vicinity of 25 to 35, maybe 40 miles an hour speed, okay, for transportation for many years, and I'll show you that here in a second. And we have evolved, and if you look here, now, a lot of people may argue these timelines. This is pretty much what we call widespread adoption, meaning it's when people really started using this stuff. There were steam engines and stuff that they were being flirted with, but in 1802, we transitioned from horses and we added steam power in the form of ships. So now boats could take us up rivers and across lakes and across the oceans with steam power. Soon followed by steam engines in the form of trains, and we had gasoline engines. Who's the first gasoline engine and vehicle producer? Ford, right? No, it wasn't Ford. A guy by the name of Carl Benz. Benz created that car first, okay? Then we came into rotary engines, so we had propellers, and then we started flying. Crazy, yes? Jet engines, and then into rockets. From the horse to a jet engine, you're talking from going 25 to 35 or 40 miles an hour, nowadays going into 450 to 500 miles an hour on a passenger plane. I looked it up on Google. That's like a 70x factor of travel speed, okay? And if you think about that, in 200 years, that's nuts. And then last to come, the last major transportation thing was we invented rockets in '61 and we put them into space and we landed on the moon. And there's still people that don't believe we landed on the moon. Perk's probably one of them right here. But a lot of people don't believe that we landed on the moon because they're coming from something native, like they rode horses to school and so on and so forth, okay? I'm going somewhere with this. Follow me. 200 years, that's a long time, yes? Along with this evolution came all kinds of change to the world. It brought people out of the sticks and farms and baking bread and stuff in the middle of nowhere, and it created city centers, and it created factories, and it created evolution to build this stuff. It created disease, it created population and smog. So there was a lot of ramifications that went on. Let me show you something. If you think that 200 years was a long time, take a peek at this. We were on a horse since here. 4,800 years. We were either on a horse or we were beating feet in the form of walking to wherever we had to go before we ever got to 1802, okay? So we're talking 5,000 years of evolution to take us from a horse into space. What does that tell you guys? Does that blow your mind at all that we were doing that for that long? Because things are moving significantly faster in today's world. In just 20 years, wide adoption of a thing called the internet. What do we do before internet? I tried to explain this to my children recently that if it was a Sunday and I had dragged my feet all weekend to write the book report, I couldn't go to the internet to find all the things I needed to actually write my report or put it into ChatGPT and completely cheat and hand it in the next day. That didn't exist. I explained that it was getting whipped by your parents because you're telling them we need to get in the car and we need to go to a library and I need to pull out this thing called an encyclopedia. And my youngest said, an encyclo what? And I said, yeah, encyclopedia, like Wikipedia. He got that right away, right? And I had to spend time writing on a piece of paper. 2002, wide adoption of the internet. And what did that do to our lives? A lot of us will say that it completely ruined it, right? Because there's a lot that has changed, and I have a 13 and 14-year-old that are growing up right now, and I would contend that there's a lot about the internet that absolutely sucks. But there's a lot about it that, man, makes life powerful. Yes? But that was just 20 years ago. How about this? Wide adoption of a thing called cell phones. Dancer just pulled it out of his back pocket, and he's looking, so he's probably fact-checking me right now. Yeah, right? This presentation sucks, is what Vartanian's saying, yeah? 2004 was widespread adoption of a cell phone. Think about, again, all the things that your life meant without a cell phone. A lot of people would say that having something in your back pocket that holds more power than actually the world had in 1950 is a scary thing, right? But a cell phone has not been in our hands for much longer than 20 years. Thing called Wi-Fi. Everybody remember plugging their computer into their phone line and having the little propeller on the plane and all the funny noise to get to your internet and how slow it was, it sucked. But Wi-Fi came along and became widely adopted, and now every single person in this room or watching this, if you can't find Wi-Fi and you're searching for codes to get into Wi-Fi, that's troubling to us, right? 2007. 2010, crazy weird. Thing called Bluetooth became super common. And I remember I was in Beaver Creek. I was taking my kid to a skiing lesson, and I dropped him off. It was snowing out. Very few people walking around the village, and I'm walking around to go get myself some breakfast. and I'm going up this escalator, and there's this guy, and he's coming up the escalator, or I'm going down, and he's talking at me, saying, yeah, you know, this, that, and the other thing, and I'll make sure I get that stuff to you. And I'm like, say what? What are you talking about? And I'm following him like this. First time I'd ever seen somebody use Apple earbuds in their ear having a conversation. And I thought to myself, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen, man. That guy is just talking to, it looks like he's talking to himself. Everything we do now, our cars, our TVs, everything is Bluetoothed in. Things that we would have thought are just absolutely Star Trek before, yeah? And now here we find ourselves. And I can't tell you how many times you guys have heard AI at just this convention. It seems to work itself into every single conversation from every single dealer, vendor, manufacturer is AI. It's everywhere you look. And like I said, Sam's point yesterday was, we can worry about AI. I'm not going to start worrying about AI until we take care of things in the dealership. That's a fact. I'm going to tell you right now, if you're not worrying about artificial intelligence and technology and how your dealership should look in the future, you will miss the wave and you will go out of business for certain, okay? ChatGPT, I remember it was 2.5 years ago. I'd kind of studied it a little bit. I got some information, and it was part of my first 2 hours of the meeting. And I don't know, you were probably at that meeting, Jason, where I just said, here's this thing, and we can type stuff into it, and it does this stuff, and we can make advertisements and all that. And people were just like, holy crap, that is nuts. That's crazy. We can do this and that. Anyway, let's talk about our numbers. And off we went. We were doing something different. Well, ChatGPT and artificial intelligence, if used wisely, is really going to help you in your business. This conversation is not about AI specifically. It is about the evolution that should be occurring inside of your dealership. So, one last thing before we get into the meat of this thing. In 20 years, things like that were invented. Skype. We didn't have an ability to look onto a phone or a computer and have a conversation, you and I, Perk, before that. That's terrifying now because that is now commonplace. That's how I wake up and say goodnight to my children. This little thing, social media, which a lot of people will say is the downfall of society. If you look at it the right way, it's actually a really cool tool that you will have to use and leverage into the future, more than just taking pictures of a motorcycle and putting it up on Instagram. That is not what it's going to be used for. But that has only been around for less than 20 years. How about this? Reusable rockets. Reusable rockets. We can send it up, and it used to be sent up by government agencies. Now it's sent up by private companies. Yeah, Katy Perry's going up in rockets. Now there's tourism. That was not a thing in the past 20 years. That is as recent as about 12 years now. Reusable rockets, Google Maps. What did we do before that, right? Who knows what that thing is? People are going to say that that is a Discman, and it's not. That's the first iteration of what is called an MP3 player. And MP3 players were super cool for like 3 years until Apple put one into their phone. And then that killed the whole industry, okay? But an MP3 player where you had digital music at your fingertips. How about that? Did you know that these didn't exist 20 years ago? A thumb drive. That's recent. That's a recent thing. All things that now we just take for granted. Gene editing. We can now do things with our food. We can actually create a woolly mammoth. They said it is possible that we can do it. We're just figuring out the ethics behind it. We could do it with human beings too. God only knows when that's going to happen. Gene editing is less than 20 years old. 3D printing is less than 20 years old. More social media, the first iPhone, YouTube, which is the second largest search engine, and I posit the greatest thing ever invented on earth. YouTube is the greatest thing ever. I love YouTube, yeah? Tesla cars. We had electric vehicles, but Tesla harnessed and mass-made cars and made it a thing. How about that, a Kindle? We were reading on paper before this was invented, which is less than 20 years old. And lastly, autonomous cars now that drive themselves. What is my point here? My point is that curve is getting squished. Horses for thousands of years, industrial revolution, steam and gas and flying and rockets, and just in the last 15 to 20 years, crazy, scary advancement in the form of software and technology. If you don't see that we're getting smarter and we're getting faster and things come to market daily, you will miss out on this stuff, okay? So evolution is key to success. And what you're looking at here is, you're looking at some pictures that I found on the interwebs, and I put in very specific information. On the far left is a 1970s picture of a motorcycle dealership. In the middle, next to what I also put forth as the greatest invention ever put out by the power sports industry, and how I am still alive, I don't know, is the ATC. I grew up on one. I crashed it many times. I did not wear a helmet because that wasn't cool in those day and ages, but that was from the early 80s. You look at the next picture, we're starting to evolve into the late 80s, and then I just got a picture that is as recent as 2 years ago. What has evolved? The stuff that you sell has evolved. I mean, not crazy amount of, we don't have things that actually are, that you can ride through space that don't have wheels. I'm waiting for that. That's gonna be super cool, right? My snowmobile has certainly evolved from what it could do when I was a kid to what it can do now. It can literally climb cliffs if you have the talent. What has evolved in your dealership? And I put forth, not that much. Not that much. You got some technology here and there, but we're still doing the same thing, which I'm not telling you that you're doing it wrong. I'm not telling you that you're not hardworking. Everybody here that makes the trek to this show shows their mettle in saying that I care about the industry and I care enough to come and check out what's new here. What I'm saying is we haven't evolved that much. We haven't evolved to the curve of where things are evolving out there in the marketplace. 20 years, all that has happened, okay? Customers have evolved, however. Customers have certainly evolved. First thing I want you to understand, there are two major factors that have made your customers evolve. The first one is COVID-19. We think, well, I'll tell you, I don't know about everybody here, but I will raise my hand and tell you that COVID-19 was the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my entire life and what it did for me. What it did was it took me from traveling 42 weeks out of the year, and it absolutely slammed on the brakes, and it made me stay home to the point that 12 days into COVID, I was sitting at the dinner table with my family, and my youngest son, who was 6 years old at the time, said, "Daddy, why are you here?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean, son?" He goes, "Well, you should be on a plane leaving somewhere." And I thought to myself, man, that's where I am. And it forced us in this industry and as consultants who are traveling all the time to really reassess and learn new ways to do business and slow down. And I have never gone back to that kind of travel again, and I never will. So COVID-19 also did some really janky things at the time, and we haven't seen that it has hung on. And it hung on, and it's not going away. Let's talk about that. It exponentially drove internet shopping. Were we doing it before? Most certainly we were doing it. Were we making our homes Amazon hubs like my wife does? No. Did we have 5 to 6 boxes every single day except for Sundays coming to our house? No. COVID-19 normalized internet shopping as a bona fide thing that now replaced a lot of in-person shopping. Okay, what else did it do? It drove home the concept of omni-channel. 5 years ago, if I would have said, "Hey, Courtney, you heard about purchasing your groceries online and going to the store and parking in one of the little spots there and having them deliver them to your car and you take them home," you would have been like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Because that didn't exist. Omni-channeling, remember? Buying things online, going and picking them up in the store, QR coding, things like that. Omni-channel was created before COVID. It was driven home because of COVID. People wanted things delivered to their door via DoorDash. They wanted to order online and go pick it up at the store. I wanted things to be shopped the way that I want to be shopped. And it has not gone away. COVID drove that home. Number 3, it leveraged convenience as a mainstay in the world. And if you think about it, businesses were scrambling to serve you in your home because we couldn't go and do traditional things. We couldn't go sit at restaurants. We had to socially distance and all of that stuff. We demanded conveniences at that point in time, and businesses were absolutely lining up to give you conveniences. And I remember one of the big ones is, and it's stuck in my hometown, is you could start carrying liquor in the middle of the streets. You go and you'd go buy a 4-course meal, you get the dessert, the appetizer, and also you get wine, and you can have a beer, and I'll make you a stiff cocktail. We put a thing over it in a straw. You can carry it out just like a Coke. That has stuck around. You can walk around my town with liquor in your hand because of the convenience and what COVID did. So COVID-19 was the first thing and the first major factor that changed customer evolution. The second thing was these two generations, Gen Z and millennials. I'll give you a sec. Okay, so everybody knows if you listen to the podcast that I hammer down on these generations, but I'm gonna prop them up here because you better start paying attention to them, and I'll show you all kinds of reasons why. So these generations here, I'm gonna show you all the reasons that you should be paying attention to them. COVID-19 started this trend, and these generations coming to age and demanding that we shop differently is the second factor that has changed everyday commerce. And people, it is not going away. There are so many people that I talk to at this show alone that try and justify away, yeah, well, hold on. You know, the wealth is with the boomers and the Gen Xers, and I'm still selling to this and that. And I'm gonna show you a scary fact on here that you better pay attention to. So these are funny. These were created through AI, right? Here's a 53-year-old with too much time on his hand, typing away at the computer, create me this graphic. And I thought to myself, that is horrible, and that's terribly cheesy. And I said, refine it, and then do this. And I came up with several iterations. And then I said, you know what? I'm gonna go with the first iteration that ChatGPT came out talking to me about Gen Z, born between 97, 2012. It makes up 25%-ish of the global population. It will be the richest generation ever. Remember that fact. It will be the richest generation ever, completely changing the landscape. You go over here to millennials, these people have had kids and now they're adulting. The people that got the blue ribbons and were told that you're perfect, and the helicopter parents, they're now having kids. 81 to 96, they make up 22% of the global population, okay? 47, almost half of the population. And what's following behind that is called Gen Alpha. You could really take boomers damn near out of the equation. There's about 200 million silent generation. That's my mom. That's the generation. They're really truly aging out. That's sad to say, but it is really true. They're not affecting commerce. Boomers, there's already study after study showing purchasing declines. A lot of those people are aging out as well as Gen Xers. Let me show you some more stuff here. So these two generations are what we call digital natives. There I was again on ChatGPT. I was like, man, what would it look like if I made these little dudes into zombies because they're on screens? It is really hard for us that are Gen Xers, and I see some boomers out there. It's hard for us to understand this world because we are what they call digital immigrants. Digital immigrants mean we had analog. We had rotary phones. We sent letters. We had conversations. We made dates on a telephone and met at the place. And if we weren't there, we found a payphone to call and say, man, I'm gonna be 15 minutes late. It's a wholly different generation. So it's not that we're better or worse than them. It's that we are immigrants to check out this lady walking into my presentation with those glasses. Who are you? You are fantastic is who you are. I love this girl. Digital immigrants. So we've had both. So that's when we're looking at these, like the picture that I showed you guys, right? When I look at this, it depresses me because I remember a day when it was none of this and we were sitting there drinking beer and I was hammering on Daniel and he was hammering back on me and we were having conversations because they are what is called digital native. My children can't conceive, and here's a hilarious story. They can't conceive of, what do you mean it's a cell phone? I finally broke down at 13 and 14 and got my children iPhones, which is a wholly better idea than what I had them doing because I can completely control them. But we were in Martha's Vineyard about 2 years ago at a friend of mine's wedding, and he has a couple of houses on Martha's Vineyard. We went into one of his houses, and he has kept this house the same way that it's been since like the late 70s, early 80s. We're walking around, and I'm sitting there walking around, and Diego, my youngest, kind of pulls on my arm. He's like, "Hey, Dad, what is that thing?" And I look over, and it was an olive green rotary telephone. And I was like, "Oh, well, that's a telephone." He's like, "What do you mean it's a telephone?" I'm like, "That's a telephone. That used to be how you call it." And the guy, Joel, whose house it was, he's like, "It still works too." And I was like, "Oh my God, you're kidding." And so Diego goes over. He's like, "So what do I do with this thing? Like literally, what do I do?" I said, "First off, you got to pick it up." He picks it up and he goes, "Okay, what now?" He's holding it. I'm like, "Put it to your ear." And he puts it to your ear. He's like, "What is that?" I'm like, "That's called a dial tone." He's like, "Okay." And I said, "So remember my number?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Put your finger in." And I told him how to call my number and does the whole thing. And he's like, "And it's doing this thing." I was like, "It's ringing right now." My phone, and he thought that was absolutely wild. Thought it was the coolest thing ever. Because he's a digital native. He can have things right now at his fingertips through YouTube. He can get onto his cell phone. He can call his father this morning at 7:20 to say good morning. He can take pictures and send them to me. So it's not their fault. This is just what they were raised with. And this is, and I will show you later in the presentation, this is their existence. The concept that you don't like and I don't like, that they live on phones, and that is quote after quote after quote after study that I have read on these generations. They live on their phones. Sad but true. So do you think that you should ignore the generation, or do you think you should get in the game with the generation? I would put forth that it's the second one. So they're digital natives. Remember that. Number 2, I put up here non-traditional communication, because those two manners of communication are now non-traditional. When I own the real estate to the 2 largest generations on the face of the earth, I now get to decide which is traditional communication and which is not. And these 2 manners of communication, they don't function with it. Phone calls to these generations, largely ignored. Phone calls to these generations are made in case of an emergency, 911. You don't make phone calls to this generation. Hear me say this, it is not how they communicate. They communicate through social media, they communicate through apps, they communicate literally with GIFs. GIFs, as in memes and emojis. I didn't know this, and you can look it up after this presentation. Gen Z is adverse to using specific punctuation. By ending a sentence with a period, you're actually being terse. Did we even know that? So that's being aggressive, is using a period. Using an exclamation point, we got beef. Yeah? They also, look this up, they consider certain memes to be equitable to paragraphs. So when I'm giving you little heart emojis like this, sending it back to you, man, I'm really super pumped about this and I love it. Think about that in the future. But the manner in which we're communicating, which I can guarantee you, most of your communication in your dealerships is being used with those things right there. You're getting ready to miss very large generations with lots of money coming in the future. Last but not least, more in the pipe is the physical need to come into a dealership. This is the great news for you. It exists largely with this generation. However, what you have to know is they have gone on to multiple sources. They have omni-channeled you. They've gone to manufacturers' websites. They've used their cell phones to look at influencers and people and what they're doing. They have damn near all of the information that they want. The only reason they're coming into your dealership is to actually physically lay eyes, smell, lick, sit in the thing. That's the only thing they want to do. And that is a super important step. So as we move down the line into the future, what I really want you to understand, and this goes back to what Sam was talking about, a key experience when they walk in the door is paramount for these people, because they also want to feel super important, they want to feel inclusive, and they want to feel special. And those aren't just buzzwords, meaning they want lifestyle. They want to feel what's going on in a power sports dealership. It is not good enough to walk in and say, throw a leg over this thing. How does it feel? It's not what they're looking for. They're looking for inclusion and they're looking for experience, okay? So the physical need to walk into a dealership. So I'm 53 and man, we've talked about this a lot. In my day, I would go and I would look at these things called magazines and the cycle world and all those things. And everybody in here probably seems like they remember this. I know Bill right here. By the way, Bill Hearn, legend in the power sports industry. We won't lose Bill anywhere in this show if you see Bill's shirt here. But Bill, there he is. But everybody here, man, for the most part, you were looking at stuff in a magazine waiting for something to come to a dealership. And I would go to no less than 4 or 5 dealerships through the yellow pages, and I would go and look at, even if I went and saw a CBR 600 F2 here, and then I'd go to the next place and see another one, and in the next place and see another, it was just so I could see more of that thing. A lot of my shopping included doing my due diligence at the dealership with a professional salesperson and brochures and magazines. They've done all this. And I've said this a million times, the number of visits now is about 1.3 dealerships. You better capture them when they walk into your store, because statistics tell us that if they leave, you better be lucky enough to be the be-back, because the 0.3 means they buy at the second place they go to. You have the ability to capture them on the first, okay? So the physical need, they are adverse to traditional negotiation. I want you to think about individuals that have their heads in phones and sometimes have a hard time communicating with words, doing stuff like this. This is like, and people that don't use periods because of emphasis, right? That use emojis to tell you how they're, and none of this, I spent years making fun of these generations. I really did, hammering down on the millennials and Gen Zs. This is no more about making fun of them. This is telling you that, listen, you got to know that when you're talking about somebody that uses an emoji to communicate, this kind of stuff right here, which can confuse most astute customers, you got to get away from the back and the forth, and you got to have really good conversation and experiential shopping to gain trust in these people and sit down, and we got to be honest with them. We have to be forthright with them, because this doesn't work anymore. And then let's talk about trust. Trust. And this goes to where you're advertising right now. And I'll show you a few more slides down the road that, man, the way that we're currently advertising, we're not sure if it's going to work, but does anybody, show of hands in here, who knows who some of these people are? Who knows one of them? Who knows 2 of them? All 3? Okay. This guy right here, Cristiano Ronaldo. Number 1 in Instagram follows. When he buys a shirt or a car or a side-by-side, guess what? That is way more proof of concept to those 2 generations than an advertisement from Polaris or BRP or CF Moto. They give 2 shits about that kind of advertising. They are looking for social proof and peer review. It's what their friends and the people that they follow, it's what they say. The middle person, who knows him? That's Mr. Beast. I actually know this guy because my kids introduced me to him. Super funny on YouTube. I would actually tell you to go watch him. That's the number 1 followed human being on YouTube is Mr. Beast. And not only does he do really super funny videos, he does a lot of really cool altruistic work around the world with water and money and so on and so forth. But my kids eat everything that he makes. Chocolate, burgers, name it, because It's Jimmy, it's Mr. Beast. So they follow him. They identify more with him than a commercial about McDonald's on TV. They could care less about that. This girl, her last name is Charlie D'Amelio, whatever it might be, #1 influencer on TikTok. Okay, so you have Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. These people, to that generation, paramount of importance, paramount of following. So if we're not doing things, and I'm not suggesting that you go follow and start making YouTube and Instagram channels like this, but you better be cognizant of how you're advertising and who follows the brands that you're selling and what you can do to prop them up, because it matters to them. How about this? Read that. 2040, people. That's 14 years. 14 years. That generation who we have made fun of, emojis, no periods in their sentences, don't like to pick up phones, will be the richest generation on the face of the earth. And if I've taught you anything, it should be that 14 years is a blink of an eye. And the way that we are moving with artificial intelligence and technology is terrifying. You better pay attention to these people, because the whole concept of what I was talking about, I've had a lot of guys my age say, oh yeah, we got boomers and Gen Xers, they got the money, I'm focused. Yeah, okay, there they are. And that just means in 14 years, they will be the richest generation. That's not accounting for what's happening now until 14 years, okay? They're gonna have money. Experience reimagine. Listen, I'm only surmising, but I can tell you right now the auto industry is strongly looking and highly focused on wondering if dealer direct or manufacturer direct to dealer through customer, it is a major thing. Go look it up on the internet, people. They are already trying to figure out how they can stop doing a lot of this, because everybody in here, raise your hand if this is one of your nightmares, which is, I just get stuffed with inventory. My flooring costs crush me. Advertising like mad just to deal with my competitor who sells the same brand that I do, that doesn't make sense really in business, right? Having to carry the load of this much inventory. And if we know anything, we know that auto has about a 10-year tail on us, right? The things that they do, we tend to mimic. I'm not sitting here trying to terrify you in saying that dealers are gonna go direct to customer, because there will always be a need for dealers, or I'm sorry, manufacturers going direct to customer. My point is this: dealers were always gonna fit in the game, but there may be a day in the very near future that you're going to see manufacturers trying to sell motorcycles or side-by-sides on the internet. They'll go through a dealer, you're gonna get your cut, but to Sam's point yesterday, guess what you're gonna have to do? You're gonna get the money from the sale of a vehicle, and you're still gonna get pre-owned, and you're still gonna be able to sell the allocation that they're giving you, but now you're gonna have to do one hell of a great experience to come and get the incremental sales on the back end. This model is not sustainable. This is the #1 complaint of every single one of my dealers in a 20 club is, I suffocate under the amount of things that I have to have on my floor, okay? Flooring expenses, national average in 2025, you guys paid $121,000 to have things on your floor. That's a lot of damn money. Obsolescence in parts and accessories, another game that, man, half of it is because of dealers and half of it is because of OEMs. $202,000 at the end of the year, you could have taken and put it into a 55-gallon drum and lit it on fire because it had a birthday and it's really not relevant to your dealership anymore. And advertising, you paid almost $100,000, probably just trying to beat the 4 or 5 dealers around you. Let's look at that at per unit sold. $250 of every motorcycle that you sold went to letting it sit on your floor. $387 of every unit you sold went to junky, terrible choices you made in the parts and accessories department, and $186 per unit sold in advertising per vehicle, okay? There's a real dollar amount to this. Experience reimagine, man. This doesn't work anymore. It does not work anymore. Took me a long time to get all the extra arms and feet out of this picture through AI, and the stuff that comes up is pretty damn funny, but This is terrifying even to myself. I don't want to deal with this crap. Oops, sorry about that. But the next generations who we know are going to have money, they most certainly do not want to do this, okay? Demand a different experience. We have to get into omni-channeling, okay? We have to get into omni-channel. And all that simply means is just having a good presence online. When's the last time you looked at your website? Because I can tell you, for the most part, power sports dealers' websites, man, they're pretty poor. They're pretty junky, and you don't do enough stuff with them. It also means that you have a good social media presence, and I'll explain a little bit later what that means. But social media is just not taking pictures or silly videos about Bob buying a side-by-side. That's not being in the social media game, okay? Omni-channel is simple to do. Buy online, pick up in store, click and collect, whatever that might be. We have to learn to evolve. Get in that social media game. Things like shoppable tags. These are things that we're not doing at a dealership level, which is just tagging the thing that you're showing me. You know, if it's a 2026 Elemento P123, put a tag on there so that they can click on it and hold it, and it takes you somewhere to a website and shows you what the price might be. Links and bios, if you follow anybody on social media, you'll hear them say that a lot. Hey man, check out the link in my bio. Then you can go to that place and you can buy things, whether it's a helmet or a motorcycle, discount codes, QR codes. Get into the game. You know what? A couple of hours and a really good AI search engine, you can find all this stuff, people. This isn't rocket science. Number 3, experiential shopping. It's important to them. They want to feel the lifestyle that when they come in, they want to feel welcome. Be where they are. They're on social media. They're on their phones. Figure out manners in which to be where they are. Speak their language. Speak their language. Saturday's deal, we only got 2 left. That's not their language, man. It is, man, you come in here with your friends, we'll create a great experience, we'll get a good vibe in the store. Seamless journeys, man, you gotta take away the pain points for this generation because, honestly, they don't do well with it. They are not a generation of adversity, never have been. And value beyond price. What can you offer as a dealership that goes beyond the unit and how much money I gotta lay down for it? Whether it is group rides that are driven to a younger generation, meetups, barbecues for a younger generation, figure out your customer, know who they are. Demand a different experience, digital and mobile, okay? We gotta be in that digital mobile game, and I don't think anybody right here is doing digital and mobile. Again, it goes back to that computer and that landline phone. We gotta get into that digital mobile space. Quick support videos. How many times have you heard Schoolie, myself, Jolene, Sam say, you gotta be shooting videos, you gotta be shooting videos. If you're not in the video game, guess what? These people are used to watching 8-second videos. My children don't know what a 9-second video is because they're just flipping right past things at a rapid pace, right? Chats, they communicate through chats, they communicate through DMs, they communicate through texts, and they communicate through voice notes that they send you. Jolene was talking to me the other day about how her and her daughters talk. They use snaps. I had no clue what the hell a snap was, but they use Snapchat to talk. You have to figure that stuff out because getting on a phone or sending them emails, you're gonna lose that customer. Authentic, concise, and direct communications. Honest communications. No more of the sales game. Aggressively seek technology out here, people. Aggressively seeking technology. You know, Sam and I were talking last night at dinner is when we got into this industry, there was exactly one single CRM to use that was not paper and pen, and that was Traffic Log Pro. Everybody else was relegated to pen and paper. That was the first thing to come out. I walked up and down the aisles of this show, and these are all the things that are now being offered to you. I'm not telling you have to go sign up for all of them. I'm not telling you that one is better than the other. I'm telling you that technology is going to drive your business forward. Even here at Garage Composites, we are leveraging artificial intelligence to build out things that are going to help us. We've done things like partnered with Livium and their TrueTrack product that we're going to be using in the future to take our paper composite, which is near and dear to our heart, and turn it into a digital product that you can move and pivot and look at all kinds of different things. We realize that we need to evolve with them, and so we're going to be partnering up with them starting now. And then we have to leverage fixed operations. We have to leverage fixed operations because, again, you're talking about a generation that wants to feel special. Have you guys seen the advent of things like black cards that you can go apply for, or concierge cards, or membership clubs? The rise in that are these two generations because they want to feel like they can have a black card, which real black cards, we know you're invited to apply for. You can't just go on social media and apply for them. So leveraging fixed ops is doing things such as white glove service, predictive service with them, showing them how to wrench or work on their units, because again, that's really not their thing. But we most certainly have to get advanced, and we have to change the manner in which we are doing business. Questions, comments, concerns? Nada? Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. info@Garage Composites. If you want this presentation, we will send it to you. info@Garage Composites. I'll gladly take a PDF of this and I'll sell it to you guys. That is it. I'm 1 minute over. I thank you guys so very much for coming to my presentation. Have a great show.